I guess we're recording it. Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Brad Hess, and I'm the Principal Project Manager for the City of Santa Barbara. And we welcome you to the Santa Barbara Police Station Project Community Update Virtual Webinar on March 7th, 2022. We're glad you made it. Thank you. We appreciate your time, and we know it's valuable, so we will be doing a presentation and then having a Q&A after that. So we have a couple administrative details to work through, one of which is interpretation. So I'm going to bring on Norma Cervantes, she's one of our administrative analysts, but she's graciously interpreting for us tonight. So Norma, please.
Buenas noches a todos y bienvenidos. Si alguien necesita interpretación en español, por favor pónganlo en la, abajo donde dice Q y A y por favor dígame allí si necesita interpretación. Gracias.
Great. Thank you. Again, welcome. I'm going to go ahead and get started. Again, if you do need interpretation, hopefully you'll be able to connect with Norma. But I'd like to just introduce who's going to be joining us tonight. So I already introduced myself. We also have Police Chief Bernard Melechian with us tonight. He's going to be giving some opening remarks. We have Brian Cornell, who's our local architect with Cornell Collective. He's one of the principals there. We have Jim McLaren, who I describe as our technical architect. He's with NWL Architects. We have Leah Monaco, who's our administrative specialist at the city, and she's running our back of house and doing a fantastic job. And then Norma Cervantes, who you just saw, and she's doing our interpretation. So we gave the welcome and introductions. We are going to have a process of how to ask questions. Leah will go over that in just a minute. Again, Police Chief Melechian will be doing some opening remarks. I'm going to talk through our projected schedule. We'll do the plan review with Cornell Collective and MWL. And then I will finish up with sort of what to expect in terms of construction, primarily looking at the first 6 months. And then we'll have a question and answer period. So Leah, would you like to describe the Q&A, please?
Yes, so if you have any questions, please type them in the Q&A chat box on your screen. A moderator will read your question aloud in the order received, and someone from the team will then answer it. And any questions that go unanswered will be addressed at a later date.
Great. Thank you, Leah. And now I'd like to just introduce our police chief, Bernard Melechian, give some opening remarks. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Brad, and thanks everyone who's attending tonight. Your attendance here and your involvement in this project is critical to its success, and we're glad to share the progress with you. I'm Barney Melechian. I've been the interim police chief since March 1st of last year, and I anticipate being here through the middle of this year. And this project is very exciting, and it brings back a lot of very positive memories. I was the police chief in Pasadena, California for over 13 years. And in that time, we went from a very old and dilapidated building to a new one, which was much more welcoming to the public and a much better environment for police officers and professional staff to do their work. And I believe that those of you that are familiar with the current building know that it is old and tired. It is not ADA compliant, and there are concerns about its seismic stability. And I think if you look back at the architecture of police buildings, they were, especially ones that were designed through about the 1970s, there's a lot of sort of a fortress look. And it's very clear that in 2022, we want a building that is welcoming to the public, that reflects the spirit of community policing. And I believe that the design that you're going to see tonight has accomplished that. And I look forward to answering any questions that anybody may have. But again, thank you for being here tonight. And thank you to the architectural team and Brad for all the work they've done.
Great. Thank you very much, Chief. We appreciate all you do and the important role you play in our community and in this project. So thank you. So what you see on this slide is our general and fairly vague projected schedule of the major milestones we're anticipating in the next several years. So many of these dates are subject to review times and things that are out of our control, but we continue to push toward these dates. Entitlements, these include the approval of the environmental document by Planning Commission and City Council, the approval of our development plan, and the formal selection of the Coda commuter parking lot as the site for the police station. And we expect that to happen early this summer. We'll then launch into design development drawings, followed by the construction drawings and the building permit submittal, with the hope that we'll have a fairly quick plan check process, you never know, and have a building permit in late summer 2023. We'll then take the permitted set of plans and solicit bids on this project from a pre-qualified group of contractors. Once the contractor is selected and the contract signed, then we'll be able to begin construction. And our hope is that we'll have all of that completed early 2024. We're expecting construction to take between 24 and 28 months, which would put our construction complete date around mid-2026. We would then get the department moved into their new building, obviously, as soon as possible. So a lot of time, but there's a lot ahead of us. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Brian Cornell and Jim McLaren to walk you through the plans.
Thank you, Brad. I appreciate it. This is the view of the new police station at the corner of Coda and Santa Barbara Street, as we envision it will be. Next slide. This is, of course, the existing police station. And as Chief Melechian said, I quote him, it is old and dilapidated. It was built in the 1950s. I think it has only about 3 female toilets in it. It was designed at a different time for very different needs. And one of the key things that we are trying to do with this building is to make it as flexible to what community policing becomes over the next 100 years as we possibly can. Next slide. One of the most important things for this police station was that it be located downtown. You can see it's not that far, I should say, from the existing police station where the Coda commuter lot is. But being downtown is critical to the police serving this community in the areas that it needs the most service. Next slide. This is, of course, the site. Also the site of the Saturday Farmers Market, which many of you know. Next slide. It is about 70,000 square feet or just over 1.5 acres. Next slide. So the process of designing, Santa Barbara Street is on your right and Coda Street is down below. North, as you know, in Santa Barbara is at 45 degrees to the street grid. One of the critical things to any police station is that it have proper ingress, egress, and in fact, it needs 2 points of entrance and egress in the event anyone was ever blocked for any reason. So we have the main entrance to this whole facility off of Coda Street, or Santa Barbara Street is the public entrance, and then off of Coda is the main entrance for all of the staff and police vehicles. So the site is condensed, and we think that creates, frankly, a very sustainable arrangement for this building in the downtown. We have the parking structure and the building located in close proximity. We have relatively gracious landscaping, and we've worked very hard with the ABR over several meetings to create a building that is friendly along the street so that the parking structure itself, which houses, by the way, about 244 cars, is as invisible as possible. Next slide. We also have incorporated amenities into the site. We're going to use native sandstone in creative ways to create seating areas, also using traditional Spanish tile to create a little seating area off of Coda Street, where we will also continue to recognize the Lincoln School. There's a plaque there now, and we're going to enhance that and have this be a little place that may hopefully be also a spot for the bus stop. If we go up to the northern corner of the site, this is the main entrance. This is where we have a small number of public spaces, short-term spaces. And then we also have a necessary generator beyond that, and this provides that secondary access into the parking structure. The lobby is located off this area. We have a beautiful palm courtyard that is the entrance to this, and we are significantly widening the sidewalk along Santa Barbara Street to create that gracious entrance. Next slide. What we'd like to do, I'm going to have Jim take you through just the basic layers of the building. The building is 3 stories with a basement, so it has a total of 4 working floors. And starting with the basement, which coming from the parking structure, which has the ramp down on your left there. Jim, why don't you explain kind of the basics of how this police station is going to work?
Okay, thank you, Brian. The main goal with the plan was, as Brian said, to put the most flexibility in the places where we think we'll need it, and to make sure we address specialized spaces where we have where we'll need those too. So there's some technical spaces that don't offer the same flexibility, but it's intended to be a very welcoming, services-driven building. Offices and throughout the building are all positioned so that they are provided with natural light. We have a real commitment to both public flow into the building and staff flow through the building as well. This basement level, the lower level, the theme of it, I guess, if we're to look at it, is it's a very highly technical and fairly secure space. It has things that could potentially have, that we want to make sure have proper sound isolation and offer security for transmitting of persons of interest that are going to be brought into the building. So in this space, we basically have storage of specialty vehicles. We have short-term holding or prisoner processing. We've got some specialized training. In this case, it's simulators, because in the basement that provides a darkenable space. We have the firearms range, which again, we have in this lower level to assure that there's complete sound isolation from that range to any outdoor space. We have space for all the property and evidence storage for the building, and then quite a bit of space for mechanical building infrastructure. And so that takes care of the lower level. There's some specialty parking down here too for various vehicles that may not be used as often. So there's some technical parking spaces down here as well. Storage for specialty vehicles and specialty gear. Let's go to the first one. Once we reach the public access floor, if you will, as Brian mentioned in that upper right, that's kind of where the public will be welcomed into the building. So the theme of this floor is really public access spaces. And then, as Brian had mentioned, this floor provides us a direct access to both Santa Barbara and Dakota. So this is where our fleet vehicles would be parked so that they have direct-to-street deployment. We also have our bike patrol housed in this location as well. And some spaces for canine services, because we've got some dogs too. So the public access points in this floor would be lobby, the information and welcoming center, public records counters, and then there's access vertically from this public zone up to multipurpose and community meeting rooms, which we'll show on the next floor, and then down for technical reasons for evidence return. The balance of this floor is used for patrol because it has direct access to those fleet vehicles. So in order to encourage communication, the emergency dispatch center is located on this floor where it's close to the watch commanders. It also has patrol-related spaces for briefing rooms and report writings and desks and things like that. It's really kind of the real heart and soul of the day-to-day 24-hour operation of the building on this floor.
And Jim, I just want to add here that is one of the key things that is missing right now in this community. The 911 dispatch is located in a different location than where the policing work is done. And so this is a critical aspect of why this building is so important.
Yeah, it really knits together. We have investigators in one building, we have traffic services in one building, we have the police station and communications all located in different operational structures, and this knits them all together. Now, there's one last thing that has to be on this floor too, and it's service-related spaces. Brian mentioned generator. This is where public deliveries can be made, paper in, trash out, that sort of thing. So that will happen from this floor too. Don't want to miss the nuts and bolts. Let's go to the next floor, second floor. Once we move up to the second floor, the theme of this floor is really community outreach. From that lobby, there's a staircase that can be utilized from the public lobby, an open stair up to the second floor because that lobby is a two-story space. And that gives direct access to community meeting and community outreach spaces that can be used for neighborhood watch formation, citizens participatory meetings, citizens academies. And it can also be used for in-service training or pressed into service for emergency services when there's need for it. If there was ever an earthquake or something like that, these meeting rooms would convert. Sorry, I can't control my grandfather clock. You're just gonna have to wait out my clock here.
It's a good thing it's not midnight, Jim.
No, I know. I just realized I should have put it on silent. Sorry. Anyway, the staff spaces on this floor, since the fleet vehicles are parked on the floor below with direct access to the street, personal cars are parked on this level. So when officers come to work, they park their personal cars here. So this floor also has spaces for lockers. It has community service type space that's accessible to those meeting rooms. And it has some building-wide support space on this floor for fitness and wellness activities too. There's a place for some fitness machines. Let's go up to the third floor. Now the third floor is kind of interesting because as I'm sure Brian will point out in the elevations as we come up to them, it steps back from the balance of the building. It has, I don't want to call it a wedding cake, but it does have this lovely terrace ability to step back like so many buildings in your city. So this floor has more investigative and administrative office type space, but it also has some, I guess, family room space for all the staff in the building to come together in lunchroom and a terrace space where they can have lunch, in a nice outdoor space. It also has all the investigations, which are now brought together so they can work more closely together. And it also has forensic investigation. So because of the top floor location, there's good access to natural light, which is very important for many of the procedures that are used in forensic examination. So with that, I promise not to go long. So
that's great, Jim. And I think one thing that's really interesting is we obviously are showing you and talking to you about these plans, but we're not actually showing you the intricate plan, in large part because that is still a thing in the works and will continue to be as we proceed with the project. But the important thing about this building is that it ultimately be flexible. You can see the little dots there, which are steel columns. Anything can go inside of this building on all the floors in many different ways. As Jim mentioned, a lot of the basement functions are a little bit more fixed, but it is very important to me that to make this building a truly sustainable building for the community of Santa Barbara, it needs to be ultimately flexible as policing evolves and changes for the life of this building, which I hope is many more than 50 years. I'd love to see it go for 100 years. Let's show the next slide, Brad. This actually shows, Jim didn't, maybe you did mention, Jim, there's a little lunch area that's outside on the south side of the building. And that also is a place where a skylight will bring light down into the locker rooms below. But the goal is for this building to be net zero. And so what you see here is a plethora of solar panels, photovoltaics, which will generate electricity and help us in achieving that goal. But that's the sustainability piece goes beyond just photovoltaics. It's inherent in just the design of the building. So let's move to the next slide and look at the design of the building. Jim had mentioned this again is the corner of Coda and Santa Barbara Street. So the entrance is up on your right. Jim had mentioned in his discussion that we have the workout area, fitness area on the second floor. And what we've done is created an outdoor portion to that fitness area that will be a great place to work. It will be private. That railing will be up at around 5 feet, so people aren't feeling like they're being watched, but it becomes a very important part of really the building and the workings of the building. And it helps to reduce really the mass of the building at the corner. And it has a comfortable 2-story presence. You can see how, as Jim had also mentioned, the third floor is set back, and you can see how we have an abundance of natural light coming into those spaces, which are going to be primarily investigation. But natural light has been an important part of all of this, all the way around the building. Let's go to the next slide, go up the street. So here you can see from across Santa Barbara Street, the main entrance. There is that tower is the elevator core going through the building. And in fact, that elevator allows people to, exit from out to the outside after doing business within the police department. Let's go to the next slide. Again, that main entrance and this area that is the public parking area, which is also designed to be a plaza, or where it could act as a plaza. So in certain days or certain events, this parking lot might be closed off to the public, and that space becomes an engaged public space. You can also see, you get little hints of green up on the roof. All of the flat roofed areas are going to be actual green roof, which is again one of the important sustainability green features of the building. You can also see that widened sidewalk along Santa Barbara Street. So for safety reasons, we don't want people parking in front of the police station here anyway. So we're actually widening the street along that side to enhance the landscaping below those historic Mexican fan palms that used to surround the old Lincoln School. Next slide. So another shot of the entrance. Beautiful Santa Barbara inspired tower. Next slide. Going back down to the corner again. And that's the green roof over that exercise fitness balcony. And let's go down Coda Street, or at least start to. Then continuing down Coda, you can see that here is the beginning of the parking structure. And we have done our best to architecturally not make it feel like a parking structure. There are actually the bike lockers on the first floor for the staff bicycles or the policing vehicles, and then also some additional office space there with some tile. You can also see this area that I had mentioned as kind of a public space that will have the recognition of the old Lincoln School. And then, of course, this is the main point of ingress and egress for all of the vehicles coming in to the police station. Next slide. I'm going to turn it back to you, Brad.
Great. Thank you, guys. That was great. So what to expect, really? I think many of you are probably here to get updated on that. This is all nice and beautiful, but how does it affect me? And we totally understand that. So what is going to happen when construction starts? So I just want to give you an overview. We anticipate the demolition and the site clearing taking about 3 months. It'll include the removal of the trees in the middle of the property, as well as at the edges off of Coda and Santa Barbara Street. It includes breaking up the asphalt and the concrete curbs and the outside walls on the site. And then once it's scraped clean, we need to excavate the dirt. So there's about a 5-foot difference in elevation from the Coda Street side. And as you go up to where you saw the main entrance, that's sort of the top of the property. It's about a 5-foot elevation change. So, you know, as such, the depth of the excavation will vary across the property from between 10 and 15 feet below what the surface is now. We expect about 22,000 cubic yards of soil and dirt to be taken off the site. The site will get leveled at that point, get prepped, and then put into a grid pattern for the soil improvement phase. The soil improvements, that process is, we'll use Geopiers. And I'm giving you just a look on the lower left-hand corner of what that process is. It's recommended for this type of project due to the type of soil that we have, the potential for hitting the water table, and it's the most effective and efficient design structurally so that this building and parking structure won't move or sink. So the process of installing Geopiers for the soil improvement is made up of 3 parts. First is the auger, which will, on the visual, it's on the far left. Augers will dig holes that are going to be about 25 feet deep till we hit clay, basically. The bottom of the hole, if you look at the visual, we're going left to right. The bottom of the hole would then be filled with rock and then tamped down, pressing the soil down and out. Then more rocks would be put in the hole and tamped down. And you keep doing that over and over again until the hole is filled. So this increases the density of the surrounding soil. It produces greater structural integrity and strength throughout. So I wanted to describe this because while we're not driving piles, which is very, very noisy, I'm sure you've heard that, this is still going to be noisy and dusty work. So tractors will be clearing the space, loading it into trucks. The excavation of all that dirt is noisy and dusty. The process of the Geopier installation is also noisy, but we're looking at the possibility of having multiple teams working simultaneously to expedite this process. We don't know the exact timing of it. We've just given you estimates at this point, but just please be assured that we will do all that we can to make this portion of the job as short as possible. So at this point, we're estimating that the Geopier and the soil improvements will also take about 3 months. So hopefully all that makes sense. If it doesn't, please ask a question. Wanted to give you just some resources. If you've got questions, we have a website, we have an email address that goes to me. So if you have questions, please let me know. This is our police station project website. And if that's too much to write down or memorize, just do a website search, Santa Barbara New Police Station, and that web address will come up. So that concludes our presentation. I'm going to leave this slide up for just another few minutes, just so that you can write that information down. And then we'll put up another slide that's far prettier than this to inspire big questions. So I'm going to request please, if you have questions, put them in the Q&A. Leah will then read the questions to us and we'll do our best to answer them. So thanks again for being here. We really appreciate your time. We hope it will be worthwhile. We've got about an hour for Q&A. So we're ready for questions. Leah, do you have any questions for us at this point?
I only have one suggestion regarding closed captioning for Spanish speaking attendees. But other than that, no questions at this time.
Okay. So now it's one of those awkward talk show host moments when you want to fill the space, but you have nothing more to say. So I'm going to, we're not going to do more monologues.
We could talk more about the process, and we could ramble on about how great the police station is going to be and how important the need is. Whatever you think, Brad.
Well, one thing that, as we're again waiting for questions, one of the things that Brian and Jim alluded to, but didn't really clarify as much, is that the parking structure is not your traditional parking structure for a building. It's not where you park and then you walk down and go outside and then you walk into the building. It's built as a system with the building. So the floor heights of the parking structure match the floor heights of the building. So as they said, the personal vehicles, you park on the second floor and then you walk across a bridge connecting into the building where you would then use your locker, get dressed, go down to briefing, and then go straight out to your vehicle if you're on patrol. If you're on investigations, you could get changed, you could do a workout, you could go upstairs to your office. But the goal of the building and the parking structure is to work together as a system so that it's not just your typical parking and then building. So it's pretty important. The parking structure is going to feel like the ceilings are way too high, but it's actually for a purpose. So I see a few Q&A numbers popping up. Leah, do we have any questions?
Yes, we do. The first one will be, could you please put the timeline screen up again, please?
Sure. The original timeline, I will. Sorry, guys. That was an easy question, but clearly a challenging answer. Was there a second part to that question, or was that just the?
That was the entirety of the question.
Okay. Is there another question?
Next question is, Brad, what will happen to the public market that is there on Saturdays?
So the farmers market is currently in the development application review for a location on Carrillo Street. It is the 0 block of Carrillo between Chapala Street and Anacapa Street, those 2 blocks of Carrillo. If you're familiar with the space, it has 2 lanes of traffic in each direction. So a total of 4 lanes across plus the parking. So a total of 6 lanes in terms of its width. So to use those 2 blocks, the farmers market can double bank all the way down those 2 blocks. And then in addition, they will be going up State Street 1 block and down State Street 1 block. There are 4 fairly close by parking structures that will be utilized. And we will be doing the improvements that are necessary for that, but their intention is to stay at the Coda lot as long as possible. Next question.
What is the projected cost of this project?
So it's a great question. There have been numbers that have been thrown around over the last several years. The number that was thrown around was $80 million. We're hoping to come under that, but if you've been paying attention recently, you know that the construction industry just in general has kind of gone haywire. Cost increases and escalations have gone much higher than normal. So I'm not avoiding the question, but I'm just not going to be able to answer it in such a way that is going to be constructive. We're going to be doing some cost estimations over the next year and a half. We'll be doing several of them. So the more recent one will be with our schematic design, the drawings that we currently have. We're hoping to have that right around the time of our entitlements, so early summer. And then we will be doing several additional cost estimates along the way to make sure that if we need to pivot and adjust and do some value engineering for what we have, because we need to bring the price down, it gives us time to be able to do that. So again, I'm not avoiding the question. I just don't think it would be constructive to try and give anyone a number. The number that has been thrown around is $80 million. We'll see where it ends up. Good question.
The next question is, when will the Coda lot most likely be closed and no longer available to the public as a commuter lot and for the farmers market?
So again, the construction start date is we're looking at early 2024. There will be some work that needs to happen just before the contractor starts. So I would say probably late 2023 if we meet these projected dates. That's when the parking lot would be closed and farmers market would be relocated up to Carrillo. The implication in that question I'd like to just address, which is, you know, there's 212 parking spaces there, and where are those people going to go? So we do have a plan in place, but if this last year is any indication of what could potentially happen in the next 2 years, it's a little early to put out that plan just because things will happen. But we do have a plan for those that hold permits for the Coda lot. The idea is that there is capacity in other parking structures throughout the city. So being able to purchase permits for other lots is going to be what we're proposing. And what's going to be discussed, and that's why this is too early, is what those will cost. So stay tuned, but we do have a plan in place.
The next question is, can you reiterate for the farmers market customers the estimated date when the market needs to move? Thank you.
Sure. Again, it will, based on these projected dates, it would be late 2023. Exactly when, we don't know. There's also the possibility that the farmers market may want to move earlier than that. That's going to be up to them. But in terms of when we would need them to leave, based on these dates, it would be late 2023.
There are no more questions at this time.
Okay, Brian, do you want to add to anything that I've answered?
Well, I was going to certainly add to the issue of value engineering and how we all as a team on this, we realize that we can't just go forward thinking, not knowing what the budget is. And so it's very important that we get an accurate budget number on the basis that we have for the design right now. And then that will be the guide moving forward to ensure that we're keeping within an agreed to budget. So it's going to be a very disciplined process to make sure that this is not just a freewheeling spending exercise, but in fact is targeted and based on a real determined budget.
That's a great point.
There's another question now. If flexibility is a top priority, Why not invest in infrastructure / community-based organizations that are actually conducive for the kind of community care / policing you foresee in the future?
You know, Brad, if you don't mind, I'll take a stab at that one anyway. One of the things, just because of the interest of time, that I didn't really talk about in the opening remarks was the relationship between the building that people work in and the organizational culture that flows from it. And one of the things that I think makes Santa Barbara unique is the openness and transparency of its policing processes. And we're seeing currently the development of an oversight model to enhance that. But as was mentioned, it is very disruptive and it is very difficult. I'll take two things. It is very disruptive because of the fact that we have critical portions of the organization that are housed in different buildings. And leaving aside the cost factors, there are some efficiency factors and some communication factors, both internally and in terms of touching bases with the community, where that becomes problematic. The other thing is, the reality is that currently, and we're working to try to see if we can't reverse this, but it'll be a long haul. But currently, reality is we are a commuter agency. Only 18% of the sworn members of the department live on the south coast of Santa Barbara County. A lot of people in Ventura and Oxnard and other places. And so the question also becomes, how do you make people want to drive to Santa Barbara to do their work? And there's no question that the current building is not an attraction in terms of recruiting people. And then lastly is the issue, and I think the questioner alludes to it. I think the fact of the matter is, when you look at the current building it's not inviting. There's really, if you're a member of the public and you're walking into this building, it looks like what it was designed to be. It looks like a fortress, and you walk inside to a lobby that is not particularly clean. It's clean in the sense that it's been taken care of, but it's dark and it's old. And there's nothing about it that says, welcome, we want to help you. And the new building, one of the things I'm particularly intrigued about, and I alluded to my experience in Pasadena with the same thing, the lobby is incredibly open. It is welcoming when you walk in the door. And I believe that all of this will actually contribute to what I believe that policing is likely to look like over the next decade. So I took a long time to answer, but I hope I at least touched on the
Chief,
question.
I'd like to just add one. This is a very small thing, and it's my hats off to Jim McLaren. And Jim, you can add something to this, but a really good example to me of the change in thinking that actually the architecture is going to begin to inspire was a very detailed discussion and analysis of how to do the locker rooms. And traditionally, of course, you do a men's locker room and you do a women's locker room. But Jim, knowing the trends in the nation relative to inclusive policing, has advocated the idea of an open locker that is open to all staff members and everyone that is part of the police department. And you change completely the social dynamics of that workforce and create a much more inclusive group of people in the process. And the reality is that people say, well, how do you do that? Well, we basically created a lot of individual little shower toilet rooms that run around the perimeter of that locker room, and that little architectural design item could drastically changes the way people behave, in my opinion. So it's a little thing, but it's also a big thing.
if I could too, I don't want to necessarily pile on, but there's a tremendous amount of movement in many of the agencies we're working with to do co-responder programs and be able to have spaces where people that work with the police on a regular basis can work cohesively and collectively. We're doing a bunch of work in the Portland area, and I don't know if anyone's familiar with the Cahoots projects, but basically it allows for co-responder units to house with police. And that's when Brian talked about flexibility, we're hoping that the way the community meeting rooms and some of the office spaces are configured, we have some future growth in some of these spaces. And the intent would be that as there's ability for different groups to work hand in glove with the PD, there'll be the spaces there where they can actually join forces to work together. So it's a lot of that is in the formation stages right now. So that's why the flexibility is important, so that we have an ability for that type of space, so that it's not everyone's not isolated.
We have an attendee that has raised their hand. I'm waiting on a question in the Q&A at this moment.
Thank you. I believe the term is dead air in the radio world, but hopefully this is constructive time to think of other questions or write them into the Q&A. And that didn't work. So I'll just leave this up like this. If you think of other questions, please reach out. That email goes straight to my my inbox. I'm happy to engage and have a discussion.
Well, I guess, Brad, we did a good job.
Might be too
Explaining.
early for self-congratulations, but well, I hope we've answered the questions that were most pressing. This will not be the last time we have this. This is, we felt like this was the appropriate time as we're getting close to our entitlements, just to go through the project and make sure that we were addressing somewhat the elephant in the room in terms of construction impact. So we hope we've clarified some things. We hope that you will stay engaged in the process. Good. Looks like we have one more question.
The next question is, what plans are in place for noise and dust abatement?
So the plans that are in place there are pretty stringent requirements for the area, for dust, for noise. The construction is this type of project. It is noisy. It is what it is. There are dB levels that we have to stay under, but construction, unfortunately, isn't one of those, other than the hours. And Brian, you can add into this if you like, but other than the hours, it's not a restriction. So we're going to be trying to do this noisy part, especially in the beginning of this, as quickly as possible. Do you have anything to add to that, Brian?
Well, I think, certainly the hours of construction will be limited. It's likely that there will be, a fence and barrier around the site during construction, which will mitigate some of the noise. And, there certainly dust control is going to be a constant effort.
Yes.
To keep that at bay. So I think, and there will be there for the most immediate neighbors who are affected by it. I'm sure there's going to be an opportunity for lots of consultation and making sure that there's good communication all the way through.
There are no more questions at this time.
I will say it's much easier speaking to a group of people than a group of windows.
Yeah.
So thank you for being patient with the awkwardness of the presentation. We appreciate it. Thanks, Brian and Jim, for presenting. Thank you, Chief, for your remarks as well as your answer. We appreciate your work.
And obviously, Brad, there's going to be numerous opportunities, as you have alluded to, for people to make public comment and forums where people will actually be able to raise their hand and make comments at the Planning Commission, and as well at the Architectural Board and probably even the City Council.
Yep. So thank you, Leah, for monitoring. Thank you, Norma, for interpreting. Thank you all for joining us. We appreciate your time. Please, if you have any other questions that you think of later, please let me know with the email on the screen. I think we may have one question that just squeezed in.
Will you be releasing people who have been arrested in the area?
I'm going to definitely ask the Chief to do that one.
In reality, we don't book people. People who are arrested are generally not held at the police station. It was mentioned that there is a holding facility that's really for very short periods of time. We book people in county jail, and they're generally released in that area, although the sheriff does have a process for transporting people back to where they live.
Yeah,
I
that
think-
does make, sorry, Jim, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that's a wonderful clarification. We have a short-term holding area, but for the most part, we're just trying to provide a secure area where folks that are going to be brought to the building for future interviews or, follow-up investigative work, that sort of thing. And then from there, they can be retransported out to if they're going to be going to county lockup, that sort of thing. So there's no intent to have any kind of a formal jail, if you will, on site. Just a secure place to be able to have people that are brought in wait while they're waiting for interviews and such.
Leah, was there one more question that came in?
Just a comment. Thank you. So.
Great. That did make me think of one other thing that I think is misunderstood about police stations is that they don't behave like fire stations. I think there's a misunderstanding as far as how noisy a police station actually is. It's pretty quiet. It's not like a fire station where you get a call and then the sirens and lights come on and you leave from that station to go out to the call. When dispatch receives a call, they are contacting patrol who are already out in the community. And so if there are sirens that need to go on, they're usually out in the community, whoever's closest to where that call is coming in. But it's a very rare instance when you have lights and sirens leaving from the station. So just made me think of that.
Yeah, and the other thing, Brad, that we've talked about as a team is also the police station, is becoming a safe place also, where maybe you might have a father dropping off his daughter with a mother, and they actually choose the police station location as a safe place to do that. So it really, the architecture, the whole plan of the thing is for it to be a safe community place.
We have another question. How will construction parking be handled?
That's a great question. As you noted, or as we noted from the projected schedule, we're just under 2 years out from starting that construction. And I've been working on that issue for a while. I don't have a formalized plan yet, but there are multiple parking lots that I am looking at to secure construction parking. And I'm going to try and secure that early so that there isn't any question. The goal is to, we can't impact the neighborhood with construction parking. So that's not on the option list. So just know that there are multiple sites that I'm looking at whether it's within walking distance of this site, or if we need to coordinate carpooling from that with shuttles, we would do that as well.
And Brad, I should mention too, you and I both have experience in the construction of the cancer center, and the likely reality here is the parking structure will be built at a faster rate than the actual police station itself. And ultimately, as it's in the finishing stages, where there's oftentimes many more workers doing all the little things that you need to, that parking will actually be available in that parking structure. So that would certainly be a goal of the project, to generate that area for storage and for parking for construction as soon as possible.
That's correct. Thanks.
There are no more questions at this time.
Well, I'm not really sure how to end this. So what do you think, Brian, Jim?
Yeah, I mean, certainly, it doesn't seem to be we have any additional questions. I think we can make one last plea to anybody who's on to put the questions, but I think, Brad, you've made it clear that you are available and any questions, can go to you at any time.
And for my part, I would just say just a hearty thank you for the folks that took the time to learn about, where we are in the process. It's really helpful when people are there participating. So thank you very much for being the people that show up. You are appreciated.
Even though we can't see you.
Yeah, I know, even though we can't see you. It'll be, we're hopefully the next time we do this will be, real life where we can actually speak face to face and shake hands.
Yes, and there will be, as Brian said, many opportunities in the future for this as well. So we look forward to that. Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Brad. Thank you,
Appreciate
Chief.
it.
Yeah, I appreciate all the.
Thanks, everyone. And
Yeah.
Brad, and Brian and Jim, thanks for your work.
You bet. We'll see you soon.
All right.
Bye-bye.